Bonjour à tous. Good morning to everyone, or should I say good afternoon, konbanwa, and bom dia in Portuguese. Good morning to everyone, or good afternoon means maybe 1,000 of you are connected now with this Global Innovation Coop Summit, and all the team of Global Innovation Summit is very glad that you joined us. Let me introduce myself. I am Jean-Louis Vincel. I'm one of the partners who founded this initiative. I'm an old activist in cooperation. I've been involved in many activities in cooperation, mostly in financial sector, insurance and banking. I'm the chair of Cooperative Europe and the chair of Coop Affairs, which is the French national apex, and I'm also sitting on the International Cooperative Alliance board. What is the purpose of this event? The driver of this event is innovation. Innovation, it's good for everyone, all generations, all countries, all sectors, especially for those like you listening or watching, who believe that we can do good things for humankind, and especially when doing them through cooperative values and principles of actions. We want to give the opportunity to all of you to connect to a moving fast and an inspiring community, the Global Innovation Coop Summit. So we'll try to perform every quarter, mostly, roughly, we intend to broadcast an event online, and we hope that you will be glad to be with us and to share. All we want to show is we want to walk on two legs, thinking and acting. We want to show you the diversity in both thinking and acting. Diversity, we believe, is very important. We don't pretend, and we don't want this event to be a lecture like in a business school, telling you what you should be doing, what are the key elements for success, the one-size-fits-all way of thinking or of acting. We believe that things are different in countries, in sectors, and of course, we have to take into account differences in legislation, in constraint, in culture. We really, and that's what we will present today, we will present you this diversity. Maybe we should be blamed for something on diversity. It's not so diverse on language. Till now, we're still a young structure. We only work in English. But let me tell you, on the screen, even if everyone speaks English, you'll see the diversity of people behind that. But for sure, we have to improve on the questions of language diversity. We are working on trying to have at least two more languages as soon as possible, French and English. I want to tell that this event would not exist without our sponsors. And of course, first WEX, which is a technical assistance we work with, and thanks to them that we have this tool to broadcast the event. Secondly, Cooperative Europe, who is backing on at least the ideas. And last but not the least of the sponsors I want to present is .coop, which you might have seen on the screen. Let me tell you something. If you want to be identified as a real coop, as a structure which has its own identity, we believe it is one of the purpose, which is one of the purpose of .coop structure, which is the only entity which is in capacity to deliver you the ability to use this .coop brand name. And something which is important, that's the reason for .coop to join us, is that they also want to empower people through learning in digital times. And that's why they have been interested in backing this initiative. So now let's turn to today's event. I want to show you, and they will show that on the screen for sure, a picture I've taken this weekend in Paris. I was walking around and I was enjoying the nice climate we were having. You know, there is a name in Japanese, my colleagues Osamu, that you will see later on, they call it Sakura. Sakura, it means the time of cherry blossom, okay? It's exactly what we want to present you about innovation today. Not only technical innovation, because mostly but people are relying on technical innovation. No, on technology. We want to show that through the example you will be presented with, that innovation could be very different. So that's the topic of today. Let me introduce the panelists, two keynote speakers. First, great Rose Marley from UK. She will be on the floor very soon. And then Dr. Fotis Philippopoulos from Greece. He will be on the screen on the process during on. They are the two keynote speakers. And then three, in fact, four, because there is a new person joining in. Sarah Jansen, coming from Canada, will present what she is doing. And then our colleague Osamu Nakano, direct from Tokyo, will be on air. And the third would be Arnaud Blanchard from Paris, but he's not alone. He came with someone else, with Luc Boscaro, who is the vice chair of his own COP, but they will be introduced later on. So let me start on this event. I hope you will enjoy it. Anytime you have any questions, do use your chat. Send the questions, send a remark on the chat. I will get them, and then at the end, they will be used. Second thing I wanted to tell you, if ever after the event you want to present your own innovation, don't hesitate to use the link you will be presented at the end to send to email box joanne at globalinnovation.com. .com, sorry. I've been speaking so much about .com. Why should I use anything else than .com? Okay. So first, let me introduce Rose Marley. Rose, she will be the first. I'm glad that you are with us today, Rose. You are the concrete proof that the gender bias is the most stupid thing that might exist, okay? Why do I say that? It's not because from quite a few weeks ago now, you've been appointed as the CEO of COP UK, which is the national apex for COPs. But you know, we know how much UK ladies, British ladies are very good at cooperation. Since we have had Dame Pauline Green, the former chair of the International Cooperative Alliance, this is not the point. It's because you have something special, in my vision at least. You're a gig. And usually when, in my own country, in France, when I say, okay, I want to see innovation startups in technology, they only present me with guys with beer, like Arnaud, for example, we'll see later on. But they can't find any ladies, any women. So I'm glad you're here, because you're that type of persons that show that it's not a gender matter. So we will listen to you. You will start by explaining us what's going on in UK in this blooming season. which I started a few years ago. It's not only a few days ago, but I give you the floor, and then we will go to the next point, which is important. How does that work? Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jean-Louis. It's an absolute honour to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction. And it's actually an honour, as you say, I've just done my first 100 days as the CEO of Cooperatives UK. And I do not misunderstand what a privilege it is to be leading the cooperative movement in the UK. And I believe you asked me to speak based on my initial blog when I started at Cooperatives UK, which was based on the idea of a renaissance. For some reason, there we go. And so I just wanted to talk about why I believe now is the time for the cooperative movement and why I believe there'll be a renaissance. And the main reason, as you say, I do come from a tech and creative industries background, and we are at the very beginning of Industry 4.0, our technological revolution. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, Greater Manchester, where Cooperatives UK is based and where the cooperative movement started, was also at the forefront of the very first industrial revolution. So it's very apt that I join at a time of a new revolution. I'm going to talk about that revolution because it is going to dwarf all the advancements made previously. It is going to, the next 10 years, the next decade is going to be absolutely pivotal in the development of mankind. And I believe that the cooperative movement are very well placed to be at the heart of that revolution. The other element that I think, again, is really important to consider is our young people. The future's always about investing in young people. And again, in my career, it's what I have worked with young people a lot. And I'm specifically referring here to Generation Z, because they really do genuinely have the intrinsic values of cooperation built into their psyche already. This is a real moment and opportunity for the movement to capitalise on. We are pushing on an open door with our young people. They are looking for that distribution of power and wealth. And then finally, the coronavirus, we couldn't get through today without talking about the worldwide pandemic. And that really has done two things. It's shown the inequalities in our society that our business model has the opportunity to address. But it's also brought forward the acceleration of technology. I'm not presenting with you all today. I'm presenting from Manchester. I'm not sure that the working from home and the possibility of doing that would have advanced so quickly without the global pandemic. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about the past, because I do understand that there is an incredible amount of heritage in the cooperative movement, but I want to use the past to inform our future. And I'm just going to talk about a British philosopher, Bertrand Russell, who, in 1954, significantly believed that the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation. And given that we're not far away from the 100-year anniversary of that comment, I just wanted to unpick what that might mean in terms of revolution. So in a revolution, in the Industrial Revolution, and when Bertrand Russell made that comment, going to work could have looked very much like this, a factory or a mill or a large workplace that is absolutely full of people coming together, needing to work in one place at one time in one moment. However, going to work now is a little bit like that. That's a data farm that you can see there. And what you can see significantly is that the people aren't necessarily in the same room. But as I say, they will be more connected than ever. I believe that there's going to be a roaring 20s. We're going to have a couple of years, obviously, of the impacts and the ripples from the pandemic. But what's happening in technology, like, for example, the worldwide rollout of 5G networks, like the hardware advancements of things like 3D printers, robotics, and now nanotechnology. And just to give you a little bit of context, that artificial intelligence is anticipated to be at human level of performance by 2030. That's less than a decade away. I strongly believe that the next decade will be pivotal and we'll start to say something that we refer to as the spatial web. Now, we've all seen the dystopian futures presented by robots in films like RoboCop, and we'll have seen examples like this of the kind of technology that might be coming in films. This isn't a novelty technology, just to be very clear. This isn't just about a lovely way to interact with your technology or for an entertainment value. This is about everything being connected. So you won't go to your computer and turn it on to interact. It is all around you. That is what the spatial web means. And you'll see that now in things like voice prompts and commands, and the fact that the Internet of Things, for example, everything starts to become connected and talk to each other. So if you start to look at that in the context of the world of the human body, something interesting will start to happen. So if you imagine that this artificial intelligence that will have the same capability as us within the decade is the way our brain and our thinking works as a worldwide movement. Then our sight and vision is virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, whether that's through glasses or whether that's through implants. We will be able to see things very, very differently. Then you have blockchain, which is the infinite capability to hold memory, a lot of a memory in a very, very tiny space. It's highly unhackable mass memory. And then you have automation, the labourer, whereas shifting parcels about or filling in a ledger with quill and ink, it replaces labour, automation and robotics. And then we have nanotechnology, the width of hair that will transform energy and health and technology in particular. These technology that's stacking up against each other all at once means that we'll have increased open source, which means we'll be able to combine the power of the 5G rollout, and everybody will be able to improve everything from wherever they are. And I believe that we do have the potential for a very symbiotic future if we collaborate with artificial intelligence. If we make sure that our data sets and our artificial intelligence is programmed with cooperation, how wonderful would that be? A symbiotic future where the other Rose has done everything she needed to do on a Monday with regards to diary management, and I get to do the great bits, reading up or spending times with cooperatives. We're also going to hit an era of instant fulfillment. Drones will be delivering, for example, the instant economy. I do believe my children live in it already, but that's about being able to access products anytime, anywhere. And this is all going to happen really, really quickly. So why then do I believe that the cooperative movement has the opportunity to be at the heart of this revolution? What my recommendation is, one of my recommendations is to ensure, like I've said, that we're working with our governments to make sure that the way tech is developed is cooperative. But the other point is the cooperation on platform cooperatives. So what's happening right now is that tech is clunky and is often profit driven. The way that hedge funds work, the way that tech is developed at the moment is about large venture capital. And then that means that lots of money needs paying back, which means that things like the workers' pay is actually the area that gets cut back. So tech's clunky. It's not at the point where on a Monday morning my diary has been sorted out for me or my fridge has ordered all my food for the week. We're not at that point yet. And we're also at the point where as tech is being introduced, and this happens historically through all the industrial revolutions that when tech arrives, it's clunky and it causes more problems than solutions. That's the stage that we're at. So we see in poor workers' rights and the social considerations of everything like insurance on platform cooperatives that are for workers that are not cooperative. Right now, there's a lot of exploitation being demonstrated in the world. And that's because decisions and wealth are shared by the few in those kind of setups. So that's my tech telling me that I need to speed up. So the idea then that the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperative, in my opinion, the only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperative platforms. We've got some great examples in the UK like Equal Care Co-op and Taxi App. And because the members of those co-ops and those apps are also the users or deliverers, decisions are made very differently, and I believe it's our future opportunity. I also believe it's our opportunity because, as we've discussed, the pandemic has made people think about the inequalities that are presented in the world and what we need to do. In the UK, we're using a phrase, build back better. And as the cooperative movement in the UK, we are calling ourselves the rebuilders. So there is this moment in time. It's only a small window, a small moment in time, because if you look back at the history of pandemics and even back to the ancient plagues, straight after a pandemic, because they do happen about every century, they do feel brand new to us, but there was one about 100 years ago. Actually, everybody believes they're going to change the world for the better straight afterwards. I really do hope that we are the worldwide generation that actually does that. And then, like I say, our young people. There's so many things happening. I look at the Argentina Federation of Technology worldwide, or I look at the ICA youth research and the role cooperatives have to play in unemployed young people and insecure work, like I say, through things like cooperative platforms. My biggest indicator, if you like, is that I do surgeries every last Wednesday of the month since I started at Cooperatives UK, where anybody can book to talk to me about cooperation. The very first person to book when I put that offer out there was a 16-year-old. So it brings it right back to, not to take away how important the other generations are, just for clarity, but I believe we need to invest in our young people, because I believe if we help them with one member, one vote to distribute power and help to distribute wealth, we can start to community wealth build. And I really do believe that our moment is now for that renaissance. So that was my brief overview. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I believe you have some questions for me, Jean-Louis.
Yes, thank you so much, Rose, for this very, very wonderful way of presenting things. And I want to go further with you on what you presented. So you've emphasized on the role of technology and, of course, the role of humans, because I was reading just a few days, 2 days ago, that the difference between artificial intelligence and man's spirit is that we know that the things we don't know. We know doubt. They don't, computers, robots, they don't have any doubt. We have some doubts. So we have some hope, but we also have some doubt. So does that mean that in your vision, there is any difference in between sectors, in between ways of doing? What would you recommend, especially to our people listening, the way to use innovation? Because new is not always good. So how do we discriminate in all these boiling things which are going around us?
Excellent question, thank you. I'm going to use the example, a UK example, Equal Care Co-op, as a good example of how I believe you can use technology and the principles of cooperation to create a fairer future for all. So in equal care co-op, this is about social care. So that's whether or not somebody needs support in their house, in their home with, for example, they might need their shopping doing, or they might have specific medical needs. And currently, certainly in the UK, those care workers are not paid more than the minimum wage, and they're given really difficult conditions to work under. Whereas at the Equal Care Co-op, because the actual carers themselves, it's a multi-stakeholder co-op, so the members are the carers and the people that need caring for, whether that's the relatives that are booking it or the local authorities. But of course, because the carers themselves are getting to make those decisions, when you book with Equal Care Co-op, you can guarantee the workers are getting paid the right amount. You're seeing 6 people a week instead of 60. They've got time to have a break. These things make a real difference in the quality of care provided for your loved one. And absolutely, Jean-Louis, you know, there's a level of caution with regards to technology, but there's also a major opportunity. I'm just going to give you a really illustrative example of why it's important that cooperation is kind of programmed into the tech, because all artificial intelligence will do is learn from its experience, but based on what you've told it. So the example I'm going to use is at the initial testing of aeroplanes, of flightless technology driven aeroplanes. And originally in all the tests, the aeroplanes have been programmed to get the top score, to get the highest possible score on the computer game. And so the computer game was learning, and after a few attempts, it started slamming the plane into the ground, and nobody could work out what was happening. Every time they did it, it slammed the plane into the ground. What the computer artificial intelligence had worked out is if it slammed the plane into the ground, it broke the program and gave it a perfect score. What needed to happen was that we programmed it to number one priority, look after the passengers. And that's how important it is that we are all talking to our governments about how we influence the way artificial intelligence is designed ethically, and that in our own operations, we ask questions about the tech, because often the data sets, scientists and theorists like to compare things with data sets so that they can have a control. But often the data sets, the historic data sets, are based on a white male. So you've already got a bias. So this stuff is a bias for sure. Yeah, it's really important. There's a moment right now where we can influence and make a big difference. I will always recommend caution, but please embrace it. It's coming. Whether you want it to or not, it's coming. It's coming thick and fast this decade. And I believe that it's part of our role to drive the future of cooperation for the next 150 years is to make sure that we invest in our tech and our young people.
Thank you for this very, very interesting comment. And as you say, it gives hope, and everything is not yet written. There is still plenty to play. Thank you for introducing this panel. You will come back on every example that will be given to react, like Dr. Philopoulos later on. I now go to shift to the other part of the world, which is night there. I mean, we're going to go to Tokyo, and we're going to meet with my friend, Osamu Nakano, who is in charge of the worker co-ops in Japan. Hello, Osamu, how are you?
Hello, Jean-Louis. Thank you for introducing me.
Okay, good evening to you, since it's more than 9 o'clock p.m. in Tokyo. Thank you for getting up, staying up with us.
Yeah,
okay.
Actually, right now, almost 10 o'clock, 10:30.
10:30, okay.
10:30.
Japan is well known for innovation, Mostly, most of people, when they think of Japan, they think of technology. And I believe the most well-known development of technology for people using robot now is using robot for elderly persons, because we know Japan is facing a demographic decline and with aging population. So we know things are getting difficult to find people to care. We were talking about caring with Rose just before, for caring on the elderly person. So some people believe the robots will be the future. Is that really innovation? Maybe. Is it really human innovation? Not so sure, should I say. So I believe it's going to be very interesting what you will present us on what the worker co-ops can bring on innovation in the social sectors for the elderly person, but not only the elderly person, disabled persons. The floor is yours, Osamu.
Okay, thank you very much. And actually, first of all, it's a really great honor for me to join, this kind of great summit from Japan, one of Asian Pacific countries. And this summit is totally global, I think. And I totally agree. I totally agree with Jean-Louis. So actually, Japan right now is facing so many social problems, and technology might be, a kind of solution to the social such a problems. So, however, at the same time, workers' cooperative movement is also another key to solve these social problems. So I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay, that's it. You can go.
Okay. Actually, my presentation is about workers' cooperative movement in Japan, and JWCU, my organization, is National Center of Workers Cooperative in Japan, originally established in 1979, and we have over 16,000 worker members, and we also have more than 450 business centers throughout the countries. And our turnover is almost 330 million US dollars per year. And actually, we define our working style as associated work. So here's a definition of our definition of associated work. It's a new way of working to create enterprises in which each person could be a master of his or her own life. It's a way of working the needs of human life, local communities, and the difficulties such that everybody jointly contributes to building capital, managing business democratically, and sharing responsibility. So it's obvious that in workers' cooperatives, one member, one worker is engaged in three kinds of activities: working and capital contribution and democratic management. Okay. In the world, there are many kinds of workers' cooperative in the world. So, however, workers' cooperative in Japan, so we are mainly doing the care business, elderly care, child care, and support for people with disabilities. And we are also doing operation public facilities like community centers, and also we are providing cleaning service for public street and hospital and so on. And right now, after recently, we are trying to develop our community-based small-scale forest management and farming and renewable energy business. All right. So throughout these care business in a broad sense, actually, our members workers cooperative in Japan includes people having various disabilities and difficulties, such as mental or physical disabilities, alcoholism, Asperger's syndrome, drug dependence, HIV, etc. Also, our member includes ex-prisoners, ex-homeless, youth with social difficulties, and so forth. So in this regard, workers' cooperative in Japan sometimes are regarded a kind of social cooperatives. In Italy, for instance, so this means, we workers cooperative, or we are providing job opportunity or care and service to people with disabilities and difficulties. But workers cooperative in Japan, so we have developed this kind of business and movements for almost 40 years. So, however, in the past, there was not a law on workers cooperative in Japan so far. So, in this sense, we have developed our business by using different corporate laws, such as NPO, non-profit organization, and SME, small and medium-sized law. And however, obviously, it's obvious we need our own law. So we have developed legalization movement for almost 20 years. And actually, last year, so we got a new law, and a new law on workers' cooperative in Japan was enacted. But I'm going to explain later about the law. Okay, this is overall picture of workers' cooperative movement in Japan.
Ups. Do you hear me? Yeah. So that's really interesting what you presented about the worker co-ops movement in Japan. So if I understood well and had the opportunity to visit different places you're running around the Tokyo area, at least, we saw a place where you're working, where together elderly persons, disabled persons, and what I would like to understand is this just experimental? Will it spread out in the country? What do you think this brings by not using robots, but by using humans caring for other humans? So I really would like you to explain to the people what it means for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Jean-Louis. So I'm going to share my screen again. Can you?
It's still on. It's still on. You
okay.
Can keep going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And actually, this is one of workers' cooperative in Japan, so called Ajisai Hydrogenia. And this workers' cooperative is located in Matsudo City, Chiba Prefecture, pretty close to Tokyo. And this workers' cooperative are running several business like this, elderly care center and care helper training program for the people with disabilities, and care support service for the people with disabilities, and child care and other business. And in particular, care helper training program for the people with disability. This is very unique. And actually, people with disability and people with mental disabilities can get certification, official certification of care helper, caregiver, by finishing this training program. And here, this workers cooperative and in the elderly care centers, and people with disability finishing this training program, and they are working as workers, they are working as caregivers. And actually, here, most of worker members, around 40 in total, having mental or physical disabilities or difficulties, and while other members are 65 years old and or over. And in this screen, in this picture, a man in left side. So man in left side, this man. So actually, he has Down syndrome, but he's working as caregiver to the elderly people. And women in the middle side. So actually, she's almost 80 years old. So however, she's still working as caregiver to elderly people. And women in right side, actually, she's user of elderly care of this center. So this picture explain what's going on in these care centers. And moreover, sometimes it's difficult for people with disability to do the same thing every day. So in this sense, this workers cooperatives employs pretty flexible working system. So one member having disability or difficulties, so she or he can change every day their work. So Monday they can work in elderly care center, and Tuesday they can work in after school program and so on. And moreover, here disabled care means disabled care for people with disability, our worker members. So in this regard, on the one hand, our worker members having disabilities, they on the one hand they are working as a caregiver, and on the other hand they can be care receiver in these workers cooperatives. So this flexible working system is very unique. And actually, Jean-Louis visited these workers cooperatives 4 years ago, and his comment is very, very good. So I'm deeply impressed by looking persons with disabilities are taking care of elderly persons. That is exactly what equality means. In this workers cooperative, there's a society in which everyone is equal, regardless of various kind of different, and in which no one is left behind. There's exactly the spirit of cooperatives. So this is Jean-Louis' observation, and we are very happy to receive this kind of very good observation. All right, so what I'm going to explain a little bit about what a new Workers Cooperative Act. And last December 4th, new Worker Cooperative Act was enacted in Japan. And actually, it's a new cooperative act in Japan for last 42 years, since 1978. And Article 1, objective. Here is a definition, official public definition of workers cooperative in Japan. This is the first time public definition. The organization of which the fundamental principle is that members make capital contribution, and their business are conducted by reflecting the opinions of the members, and the members are engaged in their business. This is a public definition of workers cooperative in Japan. And moreover, so the purpose, there are three purposes of workers cooperative in this law. First purpose is that the creation of diverse employment opportunities, including people with disability, elderly, and their single mother, and so on. And the second purpose is that implementation of business to meet diverse demands in local communities, such as elderly care and community development and child care and so forth. And finally, by doing these kind of activities, so the purpose of workers cooperatives is to contribute to the realization of sustainable and vibrant communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Osamu, for presenting what you are doing, the opportunity you have now with this new legislation that has been recently passed by the Parliament, and it's I've said is in other places. It's just a start. I know you wanted to tell something which you believe is very important, but I will do it for you. Is a way to have vibrant communities, and that's something which is important because innovation is just a seed for having a vibrant community. Maybe before we shift to Sarah, I want to ask Dr. Philippoulos as a keynote speaker, is he has on from this Japanese example, any comment, any reaction?
Yes, I actually have a couple. I love the presentation, and I particularly like the fact that we have seen that in Japan, they are not only emphasizing on the technical side of things for the technology side, but they also emphasize on building vibrant and sustainable communities. And when it comes to innovation, the real essence of innovation, vibrant communities are the empowered communities. And how do we empower communities? This is where innovation actually comes in. We have the machine and the human. These are not two separate, they shouldn't be treated as separate entities, but as a symbiotic relationship. where the human augments the machine and the machine augments the human. And I've also noted the need for creative thinking, because Japan, as you mentioned in the beginning, is indeed one of the most advanced economies and technological powerhouses of the planet. However, they are witnessing problems when it comes to growing their economy. Therefore, they have to feed in somehow the creative elements. They have to be really creative about the future, and we have seen that in the example of how they are using the communities in order to take care of their elders. And finally, my last point is about the very essence, the definition of innovation. There are many definitions that are widely accepted by both the academic and professional community. However, there is one in particular that I'm personally fond of, is the one that is used at MIT, which states that innovation equals invention multiplied by commercialization. And it's multiplied because it's the product of innovation and of invention and commercialization. Invention, we mean anything. It can be anything. It's not only technology, as you very well mentioned. It can be a new patent, it can be intellectual property, it can be a passion, it can be an idea, it can be a creative element, and the commercialization part, the process of taking that value to the market.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop here.
Okay, thank you so much for this comment. Maybe Rose, since you were talking, you have to unmute your mic. Maybe you could react on what you've seen from Japan. You have a technical problem, Rose. You can't switch on. Okay, we're going to skip you. You'll come back. Okay, I believe our colleague has a small technical connection problem. So we now shift to really the other part of the globe. From Japan, we go to Canada, and we go to Ontario, we go to Thunder Bay. I don't know whether you know where it is, but it's right somewhere in the middle, in between, let's say, well, how would you say that, Sarah? Tell us where it is.
Well, you have in our notes here that it's between Toronto and Winnipeg, and we're quite close to Winnipeg, which is in Manitoba.
It's closer to Winnipeg than to
yeah, so we're in Northern Ontario.
Okay, so as you've seen, we're very glad that we have Sarah joining us today from Thunder Bay, and she's very young. She's the youngest on the panel for sure. She's only 23, and she also is maybe one of the most experienced cooperators among us. And so she's been brought up in this cooperative spirit. She's been very much involved and engaged in cooperative activities. So now she's very much working in housing co-ops. And I want to give you the floor to explain how did that came that you're so much engaged in cooperative movement, and what are you doing nowadays in the housing co-ops in your country? It's up to you, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much, Jean-Louis, for that lovely introduction. So I like to say that I became a cooperator when I was 7 years old, which is when my mom and I moved into Castle Green Housing Cooperative here in Thunder Bay. As you said, it's located here in Ontario, Canada, on the traditional lands of Fort William First Nation. From the time I was 7 years old, I was very involved in my community, whether it was helping shovel snow or helping carry in groceries for an elderly neighbor or helping serve tea and coffee at community events. My mom and our community always made sure that I had a way to be involved and feel like I was a really valued member of the community from the time I was very young. As I got older, I became more formally involved. At 14, I became our community garden coordinator. And helped organize volunteers who planted an annual garden every year and harvested fresh fruits and vegetables for the community and helped provide fresh, nutritious foods to families in needs around our neighborhood. At 18, I was elected as the youngest ever member of Castle Green's board of directors in our entire 50-year history. And I'm still very honored to serve in that role today. Currently, I'm treasurer on our board. After that, I started getting involved regionally and nationally. As a teenager, I attended the Cooperative Young Leaders Summer Camp program put on by the Ontario Cooperative Association. And that program is something that really changed my life. It was my first opportunity to connect with other cooperative youth outside of my housing cooperative, and to be a part of a group of teenagers who were learning about and becoming members of the co-op world for the first time. I'm now super, super blessed to work for them as their youth engagement coordinator in a position that I've had for the last 2 years. And I've absolutely loved it. It's given me the amazing opportunity to bring cooperative education to over 300 youth in my time with the Ontario Cooperative Association. In 2018, I was accepted onto Cooperative and Mutuals Canada's Emerging Cooperators Committee, which is a huge mouthful, which is nicely summed up by calling it just CEC. The CEC is a committee of 15 youth under the age of 35 from across Canada, and they're doing some incredible innovative work to help identify the interests of young cooperators and improve how we engage with young Canadians. In the past 3 years since I've been on that committee, we've developed and ran our Emerging Cooperators Education Fund, which is designed to provide funding of up to $3,000 to support youth-based cooperative initiatives and education. We've also run several in-person and online workshops based around education for youth in the cooperative sector and how cooperative orgs can get more young people involved. And currently we're working on leveraging our networking capacity to reach more youth across Canada and around the world. Last year in 2020, I was super honored to be elected to the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada's Ontario Council as the representative for my region in Northern Ontario. And we've been doing work to advocate for more cooperative housing regionally and nationally in Canada to address the housing accessibility crisis and combat homelessness and housing insecurity, which is very important to my heart. Growing up in a housing co-op allowed me and my single mother to have a stable housing at a time in our lives when that might have not been a possibility had we not had access to cooperative housing. Through that work with CHF Canada, I've also liaised and worked with their Young Members Network, looking to connect youth and cooperative housing across Canada. And most recently, I've been brought into the international co-op scene with my work as one of the 25 Voices Under 25, along with the incredible Salandi Brown in the United States and the awe-inspiring Samaya Uwajaniza of Rwanda. And of course, another 22 voices that will be added throughout the rest of this year, leading up to Congress in December. We're so excited to see where this group goes and as it continues to grow, as we add more young voices under 25 years of age. And I can't wait to see what innovative ideas we come up with as we connect co-op youth around the world and move co-ops into the future. All this work inspires me so much every day. I'm so lucky to work with so many incredible cooperators, so many of whom are youth like myself. And I think it really speaks to one innovative aspect of the co-op sector itself, which Rose already spoke to, is that we're so excited to welcome youth into the cooperative community. And we're so eager to build innovative social connection that can bridge gaps and bring people together. I like to think of the world as one big co-op housing initiative in a way, because we're all part of a greater community of cooperation. And I'm so lucky to be able to educate and advocate for that cooperation in the work I've had the opportunity to do.
That's great what you already have been doing. And when I was telling you're almost one of the most experienced cooperators on the floor, I was quite right. Something I would like you to express on what you've been doing is that question of diversity, because Canada is a wide country. Of course, there is a kind of homogeneity in population, but the needs are maybe very different from east to west or north, real north in your country to south. And how does that work in the cooperative movement? Because it's pretend, and it's not only pretending to be community-based, but on the other way, there's some rules, tricks, should I say, that works worldwide. So how do you work and manage on diversity?
I think when it comes to diversity, we really have to look at social innovation and what unites us as people, and celebrate that diversity and use it as a strength, which is, so integral to the cooperative movement. Of course, the idea of cooperation is that we take our diverse strengths and work together with them. I think, through my work with cooperative housing, we really get at that idea of social innovation and diversity, because really housing is at the heart of our lives. As the saying goes, home is where the heart is. And I think at the heart of humanity, we still seek to build connection through building community. That's what housing cooperatives provide. They provide unique, supportive, connected, vibrant, diverse, and inclusive communities. And on that basis, I think there's room for a lot of social innovation that celebrates diversity and works to, address inequalities and inequities in our society. Speaking to social innovation, looking at my own life, I can definitely see intergenerational social innovation in my housing cooperative experience and intergenerational diversity. I've connected with so many experienced cooperators and senior members of my community and my housing cooperative. And I'm blessed to call many of those people my co-op family. And it's that intergenerational connection that's really helped encourage myself and other young leaders through knowledge sharing and support. But it's also helped our housing cooperative communities address issues like helping seniors stay in their homes safely, and having good social support as they age. During COVID, I've also seen a lot of social innovation that addresses diversity and, helps to remove barriers and inequalities. Whether it was, our community coming together to have online and socially distanced in-person parades past windows for, community members celebrating either their 5th or their 95th birthdays, whether it was the community organizing pickup and drop off of groceries for immunocompromised and disabled individuals, or just ensuring that individuals who live alone get a phone call once a week to combat loneliness and address mental health issues. These are things that show that housing cooperatives and even cooperatives in general encourage community creation and human connection, and celebrate diversity and celebrate, what makes us different, and combat those things that, make us unequal in society. And really comes to this idea that there's a sense of community spirit that can address social issues in times of crisis, like what we've seen in the last year during the pandemic.
Okay, that's great what you're explaining us. Something about education, because you've been lucky in one way. How do you think you could spread out much more on education? Should it be through the public scholarship system? How could we spread out much more the college spirit through education?
Wow, I think I work in the cooperative education center and sector, and I think there's room for cooperative education in everything we do. I certainly try to live the principles of cooperation in everything that I do and share them at every opportunity that I have. Whether that's interacting with someone at the grocery store, or talking to my friends at university and my university classes about cooperatives, and how I think they can address so many of the issues that we talk about as young people, to address social inequalities. I think it's all about having that conversation openly all the time. And I would love to see, I'd love to see cooperative education become very mainstream. I'd like to see, every single person who goes through college or university has to take a course on cooperation, so that they get that fundamental idea that this is so integral to who we are as humans. And also they get exposed to a system that I think, really, really can change the world in that sense.
Okay. Okay, so just a question. I've received a question from the Q&A on the chat from the people listening. Since you are the treasurer of your co-op or housing co-op, if ever you would be granted $1 million now, what would you invest in innovation for this for your co-op in housing?
Oh gosh. If there's one thing I've learned as as a treasurer on a board of a housing co-op with 215 units, it's that $1 million isn't nearly as much as it sounds like it is. But that said, if we were to ever receive a large sum of money, I would love to invest in so many things. One of those things would be more accessible housing for my dog's barking, sorry.
She's like.
Yes, exactly. Just, speaking of neighbors, I think someone's knocking at my door. I would love to see us invest in more accessible housing for disabled members and members who are aging in place in our community. I would love to see us invest in more sustainability options like solar panels and greenhouses so that we can grow more of our own food and feed more of our community members. I think that housing co-ops, have this opportunity to be very self-sustainable and very supportive of their members. And, if we were to get investment in things like that,
Okay.
I think that's where we would put the money.
Okay, so if ever on the people listening to us and watching to us, they have a few millions to give, send them to Sarah. It would be useful. It will be well used. Okay, so it's time maybe I turn to Rose. Maybe she could unmute now and to react on maybe if ever you want to come back on what Osamu was presenting about Japan, but of course you can connect the two questions, the two examples we were given from Japan and Canada. Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I'd first like to comment on what Sarah was saying about education, because if you put cooperative models in places of education and enable people to use them, that's the best education we could give to everybody just by demonstration. So it's something that we're really keen to be able to do in the UK. So for example, we're looking at whether we can set up mutual savings accounts in sixth forms, because that's the best demonstration. And then just this worker co-op idea with Osamu, it feels like when I took on this role, trying to understand what a co-op is was my biggest challenge, to be able to enable the man or woman in the street to understand in one simple sentence without going through the 7 principles and all the values. And every time I distill it down, it comes down to 2 things that all co-ops do. It's this one, distributing power, and distributing wealth. And I think what Osamu has demonstrated, that when you give the power to the people that need to be able to wield the power, you get a different type of decision-making process and a different outcome. So it was a brilliant example from the worker co-ops. That's why I really do think the platform co-ops, because they tend to be worker co-ops at the moment. And that's why I believe there's an incredible future here, because we are demonstrating to people directly after this pandemic that if you give people the power, they will keep the wealth within their own communities as opposed to for themselves.
Okay, thank you so much, Rose, for this comment. Maybe Dr. Philippoulos, you have some comments and reactions?
First and foremost, I'd like to congratulate Sarah for her amazing contribution to the community. What a CV, wow, congratulations. The only point that I have to comment on is the diversity issue or problem that you mentioned. When it comes to social innovation, under the lens of social innovation, here we have the co-op advantage. We have to emphasize the co-op advantage, that the innovation stays within the co-op community. So this is something that really empowers the community. And by borrowing a comment that I made earlier on, that vibrant communities are the empowered communities. And since Sarah is so involved into these social issues, very important social issues, may I bring to her attention, if she doesn't know it already, of course, the unremarkable movement by Google where they empower women, mostly women, and underrepresented groups to break the glass ceilings, as we say, to acquaint all those communities in the workplace and beyond about those subconscious biases that negatively affect their careers. And so I would like to bring this to your attention. And why not to lead that movement within the co-op universe in general. Apart from that, congratulations, a great example.
Thank you so much for these comments. So now we turn to the third example that we will be presented with. We have two persons on the screen. I had invited one, Arnaud, the one with the beard, okay, the gay with the beard. It's different from Rose for sure. And that he's not alone. He came with someone else, with Luc Buscaro. So Arnaud is a CEO of a new coop set in France about 3 years ago. To be open and frank, I'm a member of this cooperative. You will be explain what it is. And the second person is Luc Buscaro, and Luc is the vice chair of this coop. So they're going to share their presentation. So the first thing I would like to the people to understand, everyone knows what our personal data is, okay? Those are very precious information. We need to, of course, to use them for everyday life, but on the other way, we don't want them to be spelled out or to, even worse, to be merchandised by some people, such as the GAFAs, well-known structures. And on the other side, roughly, the man in the street or the woman in the street could understand what is a co-op. But once you say, okay, they have created a data co-op, that sounds strange. What is a data co-op? Arnaud, could you explain us, at least not only me, but all the people listening, what is a data co-op? Since
Sure.
Michael is a data co-op. It's up to you.
Sure. Thank you, Jean-Louis, for this great opportunity to express ourselves, Luc Buscaro and I, the twin brothers, about our exciting experience around the data cooperative and how we blend these two concepts. MyCo is effectively the first French data cooperative. It is at individuals' end to companies' use and to all members' benefits. Perhaps we can share some slides, if it's possible, for the ground control. Thank you very much.
Okay, it will appear.
Okay, can you see the slide? Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. MyCo allows the sharing of consent data, which can be revoked at any time and in compliance with the GDPR regulation.
Arnaud,
Okay?
it was not on the screen yet.
Oh,
Maybe,
sorry.
Did you share your screen?
Yeah, on a film. Yes, we did. No.
I'm not so sure it's on.
Sorry, we do it.
Okay.
Okay.
You have to wait for the music to be finished.
Oh,
yeah, because
the music was...
it's a trick.
It's a trick. Okay, so I just want explaining. MyCo allows...
Doucement. Okay, okay, it's good now. You can go on.
So, MyCo allows the sharing of the consent data, which can be revoked at any time and in compliance with the GDPR regulation, which is the European regulation. This sharing mechanics provides access to various services, like in the health sector, in banking sector, the real estate, the tourism, or communities. And it organizes a new business model around the data. The economic model is structured around two legal entities, which together build a community of trust. First, the cooperative MyCo hosts the data and offers a shared and ethical governance of personal data. It guarantees the inalienability of the assets, the data. It's very hard to pronounce this word, but it's very powerful, inalienability. Devengo, which is an IT service
It
company.
It's an anti-GAFAM, okay?
Yeah,
You're not
exactly.
selling the data.
Exactly,
okay?
we cannot sell the data. It's impossible to be sold to
A third party, yeah.
Devengo, which is an IT service company and a micro subsidiary, provides the technology required in order to manage the consents that secure the exchange between the different actors. So now let's Luc Boscaro, who is the vice president of the cooperative, explain what is the economy of the consents.
So, Luc, how does this work?
I was trying to go to the next slide, but it looks like it doesn't work. Yes.
Here it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, so first of all, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. And one more time, thank you for inviting us. Let me go back to something. Only consented data are kept or shared within MyCo. So let's try to go quickly through this scheme. Basically, we have two very basic steps. The first one is at MyCo level, the data acquisition and consent. Basically, as a member, you download data and you give your consent either to store only, either to store and share. While it's on the platform, then you can exchange, you can forward, this is the exchange gateway, you can share this data to a target service company. Then this data can be enhanced at this company's level and then sent back to the member. Let's say I give my consent to an energy company, to make it simple, to use my data. Fine, well and good. Then the data that I will give in return will be my consumption data, for instance. It gives me power to my data. Now, as you are in the field, within the company, the cooperative itself, you can consent to feed an altruistic data lake through an anonymous way of sharing it. Okay, you don't want to see your name, but then it will be aggregated with all the data. Or you can also give your consent to be contacted for a specific service or solution. Now, basically what is done is you build a consented economy.
So it means something very different from getting some advertisement from unsolicited advertisement, because usually people, they understand on the GAFAM, okay, they put their names, their address and so on, and they get advertisements on things they want them to buy. So you won't send any publicity to people, okay? What will be the service you will offer them?
I mean, it's the service. I mean, any service. We put people in face to face, but the key is the consent. The very key is the consent. If you want to share, you share. If you don't want to share, you don't share.
It means I can stop anytime sharing?
Okay, the way we are organized is we have sectorized the data. You have data belonging to the culture universe, belonging to the energy universe, belonging to consumption, alimentary consumption, okay, whatever. You can desire, you can state, okay, if you want to share only your data linked to energy, you only share this data. You say, if you don't want to share this data, you can stop. You can start saying, okay, I give my consent to share an overall picture of my financials to whoever. Okay, you do it once, but you can cancel this consent. You can say,
Okay,
no,
so-
you can revoke it. Sorry.
So I do understand on the individual. So it's up to me to get into the micro universe. It's up to me to decide anytime I want to stop. But what is the role of the co-op? What is the role of the General Assembly? What is the role of the collectivity? Okay.
Now, being a co-op makes the whole difference. It's not exactly the technicity of the consent. Okay, we have a development time to be in a position, I mean, some coding time to bring these solutions. Okay, it's one thing.
This is the geek part, but not only the geek part.
But the essence is not on the geek side. The essence is the governance.
Yes.
We are within a COP. What does it mean? It means that, as Arnaud mentioned, inalienability of the assets and the genuine assets of the COP are the data that are entrusted by its members. We cannot transfer this data without members' consent. Capital, the equity and the board itself is made with members. It's a shared governance. We apply the one person, one vote rule. And now the cooperative itself is evolving. As we are growing a bit, we need to sectorize a little bit. We have organized the way we are working. We have the merchant members, the non-merchant members, we have the community members, we have the employees members, and all of them are having a certain number of seats at the board level, and they have a certain percentage at the General Assembly. This way, you can understand between the lines. Each sector is having its own democratic rules.
Okay, so that's still new. It's expanding. That's a new field, I believe, for co-ops, because usually we've been presented with housing, with social, with workers or platform co-ops, but that's, I believe, something which was worthy being presented. I do remember to all people watching to us that if ever they have any questions, remarks, you put them on the Q&A on the chat. I already received different questions. They will be addressed just after, when we give the floor to the people listening. I want maybe to ask Dr. Philippoulos if he has any remarks or questions, and then it will be Rose. Fotis, it's up to you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm actually amazed to see that the idea of the data coop actually it's becoming a reality. It was one of the main topics during our global study that was conducted back in 2016 during the International Summit of Cooperatives in Quebec City. And now I see that two gentlemen are making it a reality. I'm gonna mention a couple of key findings with regards to data coop, ethical governance, data governance, user control database, the mechanics of consent, all of these key areas, critical areas that have already been mentioned in the presentation, immediately after, during my talk. I'm very happy to see that this is actually becoming a reality, and would like to congratulate the two gentlemen for the initiative to actually start to make it happen.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Rose, so you were talking about platform co-ops. So that's data co-ops. Any reactions? You have everything to be the right person to react. A gig and understanding the future. Okay,
I have a question actually, which is around the differences in international law around data and what the challenges will be will it need to be different? Will it be by the law of the source country, and what happens when people are sharing data internationally with those different laws that surround data?
So that's a good question. How could it work outside of France or let's say Europe?
Okay.
It's a bit early.
Yeah, let's be frank and straightforward. Right now, we set up the vehicle in Europe, and we believe that with the Data Governance Act, which is coming within a couple of months, hopefully, we have room to develop it. We have not yet scrutinized the Canadian law, the US law. One way to organize it would be to bring data, obviously with members' consent, to bring data in our environment, which is fairly protective, and it will be an intermediate, something to propose.
Okay, just a question I received directly. Could you give only one example of which type of information you could share, which data you could share?
Okay, so many things. I mean,
no, but we need one example. Don't be too theoretical. Be very, very precise.
Let's go in the travel world.
Yeah.
You have your passport, and on this passport you have this wonderful stamp which enables you to travel abroad. We can keep this data. When you are French, you are going to Lisbon, and you are very fond of fish. Very fond of fish. When you have prepared your travel, you receive some kind of questionnaire from your travel agency or your travel agent and he asks you very personal questions. Do you like fish? Do you like meat? Do you will go to nightclub? Which kind of area you want to go to? You fill this information, and when you arrive in your place, let's say in Lisbon,
and you'll have cod for fish. Yeah,
exactly. You have everything you need to.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know whether I'm answering your question.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for presenting. There are still many things to be going on. And now we shift to the second keynote speaker, Dr. Philopoulos. Is broadcasting from Greece. Dr. Philopoulos is a corporate innovation specialist. As you understood, he was in the Quebec Summit, and it was a tremendous impression he has given to people. He's an international professional working in more than 13 countries. And considering what you already have listened from the other speakers, we really are keen to listen to you on your vision about innovation. Of course, technical innovation, but not only. You already addressed a few things, but I know there are quite a few things to be had. So I'll leave you the floor for a few minutes, 15 minutes, so that you could expand, and maybe I could react and ask a few questions, and then it will be time for the audience to come on the floor. Okay, Fotis, it's up to you.
Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here amongst you. And I watched very carefully Ms. Madley's presentation and of the 3 innovative co-ops. And my talk will come as an addition to what we have already, to all these boxes that we have ticked. My talk for the next 12, 13 minutes proposes to co-op leaders from all sectors worldwide a novel domain for creative exploration, because we cannot continue to act or behave like the pandemic has not changed the way we live. And I call this area existential fluidity, to spark a global discussion about co-op's future in the age of the convergence and anti-fragility movements. I will close my talk with the 10 opportunities for co-ops to successfully drive innovation and growth with convergent transformation and anti-fragility, practical, actionable advices. The way co-ops can benefit within a collaborative commerce ecosystem dominated discussions among co-op leaders during the past decade. However, now things are different. In fact, what the global research we conducted back in 2016 during the Quebec Summit that was commissioned by and executed for CIPP, along with and co-managed by Umberto Di Pasquo, who is now the senior policy advisor at Copa Cogeca, showed that 87% of co-ops believe that the three greatest opportunities of collaborative commerce are A, to generate, capture, and deliver superior value to customers and members, to create and develop new markets and drive revenue growth, and third, to achieve better balance between supply and demand, operational efficiency, and market responsiveness. We also found that 64% of co-ops, that was back in 2016, are behind the collaborative commerce curve, meaning that they were not ready yet for this stage. I don't know what's the situation now, however. Today, however, the top performers have either reinvented themselves or explored fundamentally novel growth opportunities powered by the possibilities of convergence. Convergence, according to MIT, the Future of Health Convergence Study, is defined as the integration of historically distinct technological and scientific disciplines into a unified whole that creates fundamentally new opportunities for advancement. We have witnessed major shifts in the way companies seek growth opportunities. Google, for example, is now a maker of hardware. They make their own smartphones. They make their own smart speakers. Even Spotify is developing its own screen for in-car use. So convergence erases the boundaries between the digital, physical, and online environments and generates unprecedented opportunities for science, technology, and business. Think about Nike, for example, that the way that they combine data science with product design in order to augment our experience, our exercising experience. To put in the words of Ian Lee, the design director at Frog, to compete in the future of AI, Internet of Things, and big data, forget digital transformation and get ready for convergent transformation. But why convergent transformation is important? We have seen brands left and right that are erasing those familiar divisions, and they are building new internal capabilities in order to design, develop, and deliver new convergent form of products and services, those that combine different sciences and technologies. For example, in life sciences, genomics and big data are being combined and used to tailor treatments for patients' needs. Convergence signifies a broad rethinking of how scientific research can be conducted in order to capitalize on a range of knowledge bases. So convergence comes as a result of sharing the methods and ideas of many different, across multiple fields and industries. So this revolution is creating jobs, speeding products to market, and improving sectors across the board. And certainly, the co-op movement is one that can benefit tremendously. Now, I would like to quickly refer to an excellent article by the esteemed designer and scholar and professor Neri Oxman at the MIT Media Lab in her article, The Age of Entanglement, where she uses the model that she calls the Krebs cycle of creativity in order to help us, to inspire us how we can combine previously distinct domains in order to allow us to empower us to play in those gray spaces between them, between art, science, engineering, and design. Information, for example, science comes and converts information into knowledge, and then engineering converts knowledge into utility. And design converts utility into behavior. And then art comes to convert behavior into new perceptions of information. Therefore, we can play in those gray areas. But in today's fluid world, being collaborative, cooperative, adaptive, and resilient is not sufficient for survival and growth. MIT professor of the practice, Bill Olet, has a word of caution for us. The world will never be slower than it is today. Co-ops also need to cultivate, in this kind of environment, the so-called anti-fragility, to persevere in the face of continuous acceleration, volatility, stress, randomness, adversity, feed on these conditions to grow, improve their sense-making capabilities, and develop a bias to action. Anti-fragility is a term that was coined by esteemed scholar and author Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his book of the same name, Anti-Fragile. And he defines anti-fragility as a property of systems in which the increasing capacity to thrive as a result of stressors, shocks, volatility, and failures. So we should be promoting, to quote Bill Olet as saying, we should be promoting anti-fragility as the desired state in management endeavors, as anti-fragile systems, people, and team actually grow stronger in the face of adversity and uncertainty. Companies like Zoom, Peloton, Netflix, BioBot, they have all thrived during the pandemic, not only because they have invested heavily in understanding the changing consumer behavior before COVID-19, but when the crisis presented a window of opportunity, each of these companies has accelerated their offerings and evolved their offerings to meet the moment. As promised, I will close my talk with the 10 opportunities for co-ops to successfully drive innovation and growth with convergent transformation and anti-fragility, in an attempt to show the latest kind of thinking in corporate innovation. First, in a fluid world, co-ops need to enable collective sense-making through a distributed leadership model and free flow of information everywhere. And this is where the data co-op can prove to be very, very useful. Second, move fast when you see a new opportunity emerging in the marketplace. This is not the time to be involved into analysis paralysis. It was never the time, actually, now even more so. Third, to continually iterate, to create and enter a spiral of innovation that refines a co-op's response to new opportunities. Four, to decide who will be responsible for data governance and partnerships, and to treat data as a core asset with monetary value as well. Five, to develop the critical dynamic capabilities, meaning those capabilities that can adapt and change through time and grow, infrastructure and organizational design to make co-ops convergence ready and anti-fragile. Six, to understand how technology trends are altering markets and consumer behavior. That is the only way that co-ops can augment the co-op advantage that I mentioned earlier. Seven, by focusing on education, retraining, and all those workplace tools, we can prepare co-ops for a future of work in which success depends on creativity. In fact, most of the prominent studies, like those of the World Economic Forum or McKinsey, they all emphasize that the key skill of the future is creative problem solving. So creative thinking is the skill of the future. Eight, a novel market opportunity exists, and here we can join actually the previous presentation of the two gentlemen with the point that I'm going to raise right now. For an opportunity exists for a global co-op certification authority that integrates all stakeholders through the citizen, the user, and organizes data in a single user-controlled database aiming at a fair digital society, which is exactly what the two gentlemen mentioned when it comes to data governance and the mechanics of consent, as they mentioned, as they called it. Moving on, to treat the business as a system with two operating systems separated by a firewall. Here I would like to refer to an enabling strategy of how organizations can really be innovative in order not to have a clash of cultures, in order not to have a clash of operations. So we have the core business, which is the greatest part because it's a part of the business that produces all the turnover and revenues right now. And then we have the innovation lab or the new business, separated by a firewall that protects the two and at the same time connects the two. So the core business is something that can be optimized and is repeatable and consists of programs that facilitate new business value. And the Innovation Lab initiative or the new business is agile and iterative. We all know that it is risky, and it consists of programs that generate new business value. So two operating systems separated by a firewall that protects and connects the two. Because the greatest challenge of innovation is the challenge of dualism. How can we operate efficiently today while we are innovating effectively for tomorrow? And finally, my last point is to apply in this kind of volatile, random world, we need to apply systems thinking to improve sense-making capabilities. And one of the latest models developed by Sense and Orlikovsky at MIT, 2018 model, they call it the iceberg model, that consists of three parts. The events, which are the bits, the 10%, the bit, the smallest bit of the iceberg above the sea level. But if we look closer, if we dig deeper under the events, we have the patterns of behavior, and under the patterns of behavior, we have the system structures. What happens in the marketplace, and we can see that left and right around us, is that most of the organizations are responsive. They have a responsive leadership to the events. Something happens, and they just respond to it. If we dig deeper and we start categorizing those patterns of behavior, I mean, what caused, the root cause analysis, as we call it, we can start clustering together those patterns of behavior. So we might have, for example, a product problem. We might have a service problem. We might have, this might be a cultural problem. And under those patterns of behavior is the system structures that consist of the mental models, which are the collective habits, the patterns of thought, our leadership style, and the artifacts, the tangible things that make the system work. And of course, the system structure is something that changes through time because the mental models and the artifacts change. So we have the events, the patterns of behavior, and the system structure. So systems thinking can help us become anti-fragile by understanding the critical parameters that will allow us to assess and prioritize what has to happen in this kind of world. So I'm going to stop right here. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Philippoulos, for explaining what are the major facts to be watched upon. Just would like to you go deeper on 2 points, on 2 questions. First one is that question of anti-fragility. The very fashionable word now is to be resilient. Mm-hmm. Is there any difference in what you're telling in between being resilient and being anti-fragile? That's the first question, because usually, yes, and especially in the COP movement, we say we're different because we are resilient. Is it enough?
It is not enough. And the anti-fragility, as we have seen, is something that organizations can actually build on. So it's not a theoretical term. It's something that can be turned into a leadership direction for co-op leadership. But anti-fragility is a much deeper and more inclusive term. Resilience is about being able to resist the shocks from the external environment. Anti-fragility is the ability to resist the shocks and to grow in the face of adversity, randomness, stress, and all of these conditions. So how can I resist the shocks and at the same time utilize this environment to feed on those conditions to grow? Therefore, it is a much more inclusive, much more modern, much more powerful term that I would like to propose to the Coop community with the occasion of the today's global event.
Thank you so much for this idea. We're going to work on that. The second one, which I wanted you to stress upon, is this question of firewall between the research and development, innovation part, and the everyday business, should I say.
Yes.
It sounds strange because usually it is said, okay, it should be all the same. So does that mean that on one side there will be, the intellectuals, those in charge of building up the future, and on the other side, okay, the everyday working man?
That is a very spot on question. Thank you for this opportunity. It has to do precisely with the way that innovation occurs and innovation spreads in society and innovation is enabled within organizations. What do I mean? That innovation, anything that constitutes innovation, starts as a very small and, as Ms. Marley mentioned earlier, clunky solution. Therefore, when organizations run into trouble, they usually kill those innovations because they constitute a very small part of the overall business. Therefore, they see it as an expense. There are also other parameters, such as very well-documented parameters, such as the cultural lock-in, that, for example, okay, we are investing X amount of money to innovate, for example, in digital transformation, and then COVID happens. Okay, digital transformation will be accelerated, but something else that they were trying to build, they say, okay, this is not the time. And they lock themselves into the ways that they are familiar with, to the ways that were successful and they brought them there in the first place. So we need to separate where innovation happens and the main business, but at the same time to connect the two. If we look at the history of innovation, and I'm going to stop here, they call it the island bridge model. If you look at the Menlo Park, for example, the innovation lab of Edison, where they invented the light bulb, they were in an isolated barn, all these amazing people working on this revolutionary technology at the time, but at the same time, they had access to everyone. They had access to the political leadership of the area, they had access to the government, they had access to money, to banks, to investors, to materials, everything. So when they wanted to work in isolation, they could, but when they needed something from the outside world, they could get it. So this has developed into the island bridge model. So we need something, a protective mechanism, and most of all, the mentality to understand that innovation is risky and it is iterative. But when something of value is created in this new part of the business, we throw back into the core business. So it has to be a symbiotic relationship of common understanding.
Thank you so much for explaining us. So it's time now for me to share the questions we received through the Q&A, and it's still time for anyone who is watching on the broadcast to send through the chat Q&A. Maybe one, it could address to any persons, but some of them might be more directly to someone. The first question I want to give to the floor, to the platform, is how can we develop platform cooperativism around the countries, around the world? Of course, we might start from you, Rose, but not only you. Anyone on the stage would be able to answer. You gave the example of the UK. I know you're open to other countries. I know in North America, I know in Europe, but maybe in Japan, since are moving. So just a glimpse of what we can do. Can we gather together on this COP platform, what can we do? Rose, maybe Osamu, I know that's the topic you are looking at. Is there any ways we can use?
From my perspective, we need to invest in it. So Cooperatives UK is fortunate that the Cooperative Bank is investing in something called Unfound, an accelerator, to enable people to understand their problem and how it can be solved through worker platforms, because I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in tech. You don't need to be technical to actually develop a platform, and it's a key message. But you still need to have a good business that can trade and can deliver on the values of cooperation. So I think we actually have to. I don't think that's going to happen naturally. I think we have to stimulate that. So I think we all need to. First of all, invest, let's say, like we're doing at Co-ops UK. But then the second thing is this bit about sharing knowledge. You know, it's really, really important that we share our knowledge. And to the point I wanted to make about the idea of being agile, we all do need to be agile when we're developing things like cooperative platforms. And what can be overwhelming about that is it feels like in an organisation like you're trying to drive a car whilst changing the tyre. And it can be a real overwhelming process to change whilst you've still got your full delivery to do. So anything that can help and accelerate that process by sharing knowledge. I think it'd be great if we actually built a worldwide forum to discuss it.
Any vision from Tokyo, from Japan on this, Osamu?
Yeah, so actually, you know, as you know, so I'm serving as a member of Council of Advisors at the New School, you know, which is running by people.
Maybe everyone doesn't know New School. You have to explain what is New School.
Okay.
I know what it is, but not everyone knows.
Right. New School is a university, a pretty high-ranked university in United States, in New York City. And actually, people like Trevor Schultz, and he's one of the people who established the concept of, you know, platform platform corps. And Trevor Schultz is working in New School, and he established you know, several institutions at the New School for developing platform corp movement. And I'm a member of you know, such a institution at the New School. And so, in other words, I'm closely working with people like Trevor Schultz. But first of all, so you know, as for the types of cooperatives, you know, we can see, you know, several options or several possibilities. You know, sometimes consumer as a consumer cooperative, consumer coop types, you know, service user can establish platform cooperatives, and at the same time, you know, people like Trevor will put more attention to the worker cooperatives in order to secure or protect, you know, workers' right against you know, platform capitalism like Uber. And however, you know, like UK, like some workers' cooperative or some multi-stakeholder cooperatives in UK, multi-stakeholder cooperatives is best choice, I think, right now to develop, you know, platform economy, platform cooperative movement. So, however, you know, in Japan, unfortunately, so we cannot establish multi-stakeholder cooperatives.
Okay.
Still, you know, cooperatives law are divided.
Not yet.
Yes.
But you succeeded for the worker co-ops legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Soon it's going to be multi-stakeholder.
Yes,
I can add to the people listening that this question is very important. We already started talking about it in the last Kuala Lumpur conference. And I can tell you, in France, we have been working on this topic. We already have 2 conferences in the past in the COP des Communs. We are trying to make convergence with data co-ops. So it's very important. I know in Canada with new cooperativism, on the West Coast, there are things moving on. So this is a very, very interesting topic which is moving on. The last question, there are so many questions, I can't raise all of them now. But this one is interesting, and I'm going to ask Sarah. It goes back to the one I was asking you, but as a treasurer. Someone is asking us, do you believe anyone would be interested in investing in the innovation co-ops are bringing forward? What is your reaction, Sarah, on these questions of can any investor be interested in our innovations?
I think that any investor who's smart would be interested in investing in cooperatives. I think, like I said in my talk, I think cooperatives have this opportunity to really, address a lot of issues that society is facing on so many different ways. And I think, if we want to talk to who should be investing, I think it should be, the young people, the up and coming people. As Rose said, we have a renaissance of young people now, and I think young people are really invested in the social issues that housing or the whole co-op sector addresses, and for them to invest in developing cooperatives around the world would mean that we have a more equitable world, that we have a more economically stable and sustainable world. And to speak to Dr. Philippoulos' point, we would have a more innovative and a more anti-fragile world if we invested in co-ops more, because they have that aspect of stability and sustainability and innovation that addresses not just economy, but economy and social innovation together.
I'm sure, as a former banker, that the best investor we can find is people's money. That's the best one. But maybe, Dr. Philippoulos, you have any idea, because you live in so different worlds in many countries. Do you think on that question of innovation, cooperative sector is too much turned on itself, not open enough to the world? Or how can we expand not only to investors but to worldwide? Do you have any vision on that?
To become part of an ecosystem. If you're part of an ecosystem of the wider world, because ideas and value can come from anywhere, and the actual business model shouldn't be an obstacle in the way that you seek opportunities for growth. So a cooperative can be part of a collaborative economic ecosystem that communicates with other companies, with other sectors, convergence, as we mentioned, different scientific business principles, and also, for example, to be part of, to utilize the user communities, because user innovation, for example, there are many different parts, different types of innovation that any co-op can utilize. So it can be between them, among them, with other types of businesses, with user innovation, to utilize their own members, for example, to understand the problems that they have and to solve those problems through innovation. Therefore, co-ops should open up, be more open to the world, and to evolve in order to be a better fit for the world that is, for the new world that we already live in.
Okay, thank you so much for this. Someone is asking me, and it's not on purpose, but we didn't pronounce the word of Africa. And of course, it's not because today we were limited in space that we don't want to tackle the question of Africa. We know that in Africa there are very, very interesting innovation brought by co-ops and already set co-ops, or there may be many more co-ops to be created. So I believe joining to or rebouncing on what Fotis was telling, the first thing we have to use is cooperation in between co-ops, whichever country, whichever continent, of course. And I know that many persons who are on the screen there are involved in this international capacity of working together. And just to give you an example, that's just a glimpse for Fotis. I know Michael, they're trying to work in Greece, so might be the first step for intercooperation. They will connect with you very, very quickly. And so it's important, intercooperation in between co-ops. Secondly, to be open to the world. That's exactly what we're trying to reach here on this event that we will present you. Time is running. We're close to the end of this event. I hope it has been interesting. It's not covering everything. It can't be in 2 hours, but we have done our best. I want to thank all the people that were on the screen, and I want to thank Rose Marley first. I want to thank Dr. Philippoulos secondly, and I want to thank our four presenters, should I say, Sarah Jensen first, Osamu Nakano, Arnaud Blanchard, he has left, I don't know where he has gone, and Luc Boscaro. Thank you for you to be with us today. And of course, I want to thank all who are not on the screen, but behind the screen, all the Global Innovation Coop Summit staff who has been working hardly to set everything and to go on the topic. I want to tell you that if ever you feel you have a good innovation that could be presented for the next event, you can share it with us. It will be maybe display on the screen. There is an address you can send your message on the innovation yourself has been doing, or an innovation which you know, which you are involved in and you would like to be presented on a next event. It's Joanne at globalinnovation.coop. It will be on the website. Do use it. We will look at your comments. We will look at your proposal, and we'll try to set a next event on innovation, maybe different type of innovation. So thank you so much for the people on the screen. So thank you so much for listening and watching to us. We hope to see you soon online. And as it is a real international, I would say adios, hasta luego, okay, goodbye, see you soon, sayonara, au revoir, à bientôt, merci beaucoup.